Okay, so we're going to complete the chart. We're going to be converting fractions, decimals, and percents. How do we change a decimal to a percent? Kaylon, how do I change a decimal to a percent?
Move your decimal 2 spots to the right.
Okay, so we're going to look at our decimal. We're going to move it 2 spots to the right. When I move the decimal 2 spots to the right, what do we end up getting?
162 decimal 4%.
Good. Now, because this percent has a decimal in it, we don't want to change that percent to a fraction just because the decimal with the percent sign would make it pretty difficult. So we're going to have to actually change the decimal to a fraction. How do we change a decimal point to a fraction? How do I change a decimal point to a fraction? Yeah, she passed away yesterday morning. Kelly? Okay, so what's the place value of the last digit? The 4. So what place value is that 4 in? Yeah, it's 1,000. So my denominator is going to be 1,000. And my numerator is going to be what? You're so close. So it's going to be 624, but what do we have to include in that? The 1. Now, if that 1 was a 0, we wouldn't have to worry about it. But because it's a number that falls between 0 or 1 and 9, we have to include it. So our numerator is actually going to be this entire decimal point number, the 1.624, but without the decimal point. Okay? Now, fractions we're not done with until it's in simplest form. Is 1624 over 1,000 going to be in simplest form? No. We know that it's not in simplest form because they both end in even numbers. Now, the way that I would recommend, just to double check your work, is I would type it into my calculator. So I would type into my calculator 1624 fraction button 1,000 equals. When you get that, you're going to get a mixed number. To change a mixed number back into a fraction, you hit second button, fraction button, equals. When you do that, what do you end up with? Say it again.
203 over 125.
203 over 125? Good. Because we do want our answer as an improper fraction instead of a mixed number. Now, looking at your openers and looking at your tests, I'm going to want to see both of these. I want to see the fraction that we start off with, and then I want to see the fraction in simplest form. Okay, next one. Now they give us the percent. We need to change the percent to a fraction and change the percent to a decimal. You can choose to do either one. So anybody besides Kaylon and Kelly need to tell me how to change a percent either to a decimal or a fraction. I need to hear from somebody other than Kelly or Kaylon. Remember, you have your notes that can help you, and you get to pick. Do you want to change this percent to a decimal? Or do you want to change the percent to a fraction? Okay, how do you do that, AJ? Okay, so if you're saying move the decimal to the left twice, right? Where do I imagine the decimal's at? Not in front, how about behind it? So we're going to go 1, 2. So what's my answer going to be, AJ? What's that? 0. Look up here. 0. What should I plug in right here? A 0, 8. What if you're not very good at moving your decimal to the left 2 places? Kelly? Yeah, you could just take 8% and you could divide that by 100. So you can either take 8%, divide it by 100 to get the decimal, or you can move the decimal to the left 2 spots. Either way is acceptable. Now, you guys can either choose to change the decimal to a fraction or a percent to a fraction.
What the S is the L of the T?
So what if I want to change a percent to a fraction? Anytime I want to change a percent to a fraction, what's my denominator going to be? Percent. 100. Anytime we talk about a percent, we're going to think 100. Then what's my numerator going to be? 8. Now, is this fraction in simplest form? 8 over 100, is that going to be in simplest form? Nah. What's 8 and 100 both divisible by?
2.
Even higher. 4. What's 8 divided by 4?
2.
What's 100 divided by 4? 25. There's your final answer. Okay, moving right along. So now they give us a fraction. We need to take this fraction and change it to a decimal, and then change it to a percent. Kaylon,
And it's gonna be 1.125.
how'd you get that?
You divide it.
Divide what?
18 and 16.
So we're going to divide the numerator by the denominator, and you got, say it one more time.
1.125.
Okay, now I need to change this to a percent. So from here, how do I change this decimal to a percent?
You would divide by 100, or you can move your decimal over 2 spots, and it's gonna give you 112.5.
Good, so 112.5%. But you wouldn't divide by 100, you would multiply by 100. So you could either move your decimal to the right twice, or you can multiply by 100, and that's going to get you 112.5%. Okay? Make sure that you are very familiar with how to do all those conversions. That's going to be the first part of your test tomorrow. Okay, once you have that, go ahead and flip it over to the back side for me. The back side are probably more of my favorites, proportions, and a word problem with the proportion. Okay? So, the directions. Solve each proportion. We're going to round it to the nearest hundredths. So, how do we solve each proportion? What's the first thing that we do? Cross multiply. So where do we want to cross multiply first? Okay. So 7 times A is, and then 3 times 2 is,
6.
okay. Now what do? Circle my variable, divide by 7. Now if I take 6 divided by 7, I'm going to end up with decimal, right? What's the decimal that I'm going to end up with?
It's gonna be
857. Huh? Okay. Now, we're going to round to the nearest hundredths. What number is in my hundred spot? 5. Look behind it. The number directly behind that hundredths, is it 5 or greater? So what's going to happen to that number 5 that I have underlined? So my answer is going to be and box. Good. The second one is my favorite. I love these kind of proportions. It is a little bit, I wouldn't say hard, just a little more challenging. Okay, so we're going to follow the same steps, and we're going to cross multiply. So I always like to go from top to bottom. So I'm going to take 5 times b minus 2. What's another way of looking at this 5 times b minus 2? It's another way of looking at that is 5 times b minus 2. How am I going to multiply those together?
5 parentheses.
There we go. Because that parentheses is going to tell me I need to do what?
The times, multiply.
What's that key term I'm looking for? Yeah, I'm going to distribute. So 5 times b is, and then what do I take 5 times? What type of 2 is that? Negative, so it's going to be what? Negative 10. Good. And then I cross multiply 4 times 7, which equals? All right. What kind of equation is this?
1 step.
No, 2 step. How do I get the variable by itself?
Divide by
No. Plus
Oh
10.
my goodness.
Struggling over there. So then I have 5b equals 38. How do I get the B by itself? Divide by 5. Am I going to get a decimal or an even number? A decimal or a whole number, I should say. So what's 38 divided by 5? 7 point what? 7.6? Is that it? That's all my numbers? I don't have to worry about rounding? So is this my final answer?
Yes.
How would you read this number?
7.6.
What's another way to read it?
7 times 6.
No? 7 and 6 tenths. Good. All right, bottom part. Now we're going to do a proportion word problem. So if 2 tons of rock are needed to build a 100 square foot patio, how many tons would be needed to build a 252 square foot patio? If necessary, we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So when we're doing proportion word problems, what's the first thing I need to decide or come up with or identify here? What's that stand for? Ratio of units. So what two things are they comparing here? Tons and square foot. So I'm going to put square foot like this. Okay? Then the next thing I identify is my known proportion or my known ratio. Usually, my known ratio is going to be found in the same sentence. Okay? So where's my known ratio found? Yeah. So 2 tons and 100 square foot. So where's the 2 go? On top, because it goes with tons. And then the 100's going to go on bottom with the square feet. So now we need to come up with our unknown, what we're trying to find. So if we continue reading on our word problem, it said, how many tons would be needed to build a 252 square foot patio? So they're giving me a number here, 252. 252 is what? What are they talking about? 252 what? So is that going to go on top with 10 or on bottom with square foot? The bottom. So what are we trying to find here? The tons. So we'll use T. So now we have our proportion and we solve this normal. So we're going to cross multiply. What's 2 times 252? Say again. 504. Is that right? Okay. And then if I cross multiply the other way, I get. And then we solve as normal. So what'd you say?
5.4 tons.
So 5.04. And we're going to round that to the nearest tenth. So what number's in my tenth spot? The 0. Look behind it. Is that 5 or greater?
Oh, no.
Nope. So it's going to be how many tons? 5.0. Do I really need that 0.0? Nope. And then Jaden already told us the ratio of unit is 5 tons. So my answer, sorry it's a little sloppy guys, is going to be 5 tons.